Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover podcast for what day is it? Friday, March 12th. Didn't have the address or the date written down. Sorry, it is early, folks. It is 8:40 in the morning. We are doing episode 9 of the Tough Cover podcast on the Painted Lines with your host, Mark Henry Jr. As always, welcome to the 9th ever edition live on the Painted Lines on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. The 4th edition that I've done in the morning. So thanks for jumping in with us early. Means a lot, you guys. And thanks to those who are watching later. Y'all are a part of the Tough Cover clique. And as a part of that clique, I want you guys to go follow at the Painted Lines on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube and Twitch. Please go follow me, as you see in the display name right there, at Mark Henry Jr. _. Please follow the Tough Cover podcast at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for joining us, folks. I had a rough night last night. We're going to try to get back on track, but please leave your picks in the comments, and I will let you know my thoughts if there's any trends or if I have any opinion on your game or your pick or your question, whatever it may be. We will be doing a contest soon involving you guys making your picks and making picks in the comments, and we will keep you updated on that. But for the meantime, please leave as many picks and questions in the comments as possible. Before we get to my atrocious action from last night, where I absolutely sucked, 2-5, let's do a bit of a fit check. Let's check out what we got behind us. We got Ja Morant again. I know I said I wouldn't do too many doubles. I wouldn't double it up, but Ja Morant and the Grizzlies are 3-0 when I hang the Ja jersey behind me on the pod, and you will hear why I have interest in that later. So you'll see and why I want to see that trend continue. And then on the other side, you've got Joel. The King is back tonight. Joel returns to play the Wizards, staying away from a gambling perspective. But what a fucking win by the Sixers last night. Would love to see them do it again tonight and get the second half started off right. And I think they will win tonight with Joel. They're a 5-point favorite, but I ended up staying away because the Wizards have played really well against good teams. So I stayed away, but I'm just hoping for a Sixers dub to get us on a 2-game back-to-back win streak, which is nice, especially considering last night we did not have Joel or Ben. Teflon John redemption from your Sunday pick, Florida over Tennessee with Trey Mann playing. Oh, you just wait, Teflon John. I have a write-up for that game specifically. I will be talking Florida Tennessee in the SEC tourney when I get to my picks. I'm rocking with LSU. Wrong way. I always mess that up. Which you will see why when we get to the picks. So let's check out my action from the last 2 games. Last 2 days. Since I forgot to cover Wednesday yesterday, so I'm going to cover Wednesday a little bit and cover Thursday all pretty quickly before we get to my picks here. So let's dial it back all the way to Wednesday. It feels like about a million years ago. But Minnesota plus 2.5 over Northwestern was my first pick. They won by 5, 51-46 in a game that set back college basketball about 10 years. We were on the right side there, but Minnesota, boy, were they ugly the whole time. New Mexico over 58.5 over Fresno or against Fresno State team total. They ended up scoring 77, so they went about 19 points over that team total. Never a doubt on that one. That was a solid one. That was a dumb line. They were just overvaluing the prior games that Fresno and New Mexico had played instead of looking at the recent trends of New Mexico's offense. Vanderbilt, pick 'em over Texas A&M. Vanderbilt was good to me all year. I kind of bet on Vanderbilt as an underdog all year. This time they were a pick 'em in this game. I'm kind of sad to see Vanderbilt go. They lost yesterday against Florida, and I almost bet them to cover the spread against Florida, which they did. Because I knew that they would. I knew they'd hang around. Scottie Pippen Jr. makes that team just good enough to hang around. If they had some other players out there, I think that they could have made a run this year and been a better team, maybe even a tournament team. My bet of the night was FAU plus 4. That was a big time win for me. So that took me to 5-2 on my best bet. Or no, 6. That took me to 6-2 on my best bet. They won outright, which was sick. My moneyline parlay lost Army. The troops did not show up to play that day. So that was a big day for me. Wednesday was solid. So let's check the record. Wednesday we were 5-1, up 5 units. So in the best bet Oh no, I was right. It was 5-2. So the best bet is now at 5-3 after losing last night. So we get to Thursday. Let's talk the best bet right off the bat. I had Michigan State +1. They lost by 11 to Maryland. They were up like 23-9, and just played absolutely terrible for the rest of the game. They went like a 12-minute stretch of game time to finish the first half, going into the second half without scoring, and you're just not going to win when that happens. So Maryland, I don't even think they played all that great. I don't know who Maryland's playing today. I can't remember. I think they're playing Michigan today. I think Michigan takes care of business there. I don't think Maryland impressed me very much. I was more so came away not very impressed by Michigan State and the Spartans. So moving on to Oklahoma State, West Virginia, I had over 151. That did not hit. The total ended up being 141. Almost went to overtime. West Virginia couldn't quite get the shot off, but they made the three that would have sent it to overtime. And if that game goes to overtime, we would have 100% hit that over. But we may not have hit Oklahoma State +3.5, which we did hit when they won outright by 3. Oklahoma State has been just phenomenal as an underdog this year, and they continued it yesterday, and I expect them to continue it today. So we'll talk about that. So Oklahoma State's been so damn good to me. I mean, you have a night where you go 2-5. I mean, let's just put this out of the way. I had 7 straight days in the positive, and I honestly I couldn't believe that I had 7 straight days where I didn't dip into the negative. I probably got a little too cocky and had way too big of a card yesterday, which I have again today, but that's just the nature of March Madness. But going 7 days without a negative day just makes it that much more frustrating when the 8th day isn't just negative, it's 2-5, and it's a very negative day. So Oklahoma State, when you win those games in the tough days, it makes you feel like even more loyal to those teams. So Oklahoma State's a team that I'm going to be loyal to going forward. I already was going to be, but yesterday was such a huge win for me to get Oklahoma State under my belt. St. John's +1.5 against Seton Hall. They lose in overtime. They should have won in regulation. It's just that they really played poorly down the stretch, and Seton Hall made some shots down the stretch to send it to OT. So Seton Hall won that game in OT, and as soon as it went to OT, everyone who was on the Johnnies knew what was going to happen. The one that really hurt me last night, over 231.5, over 233.5, wherever you got it, in Boston, Brooklyn, really just killed me. It finished on 230. Man, if it was just a little bit closer, there would have been fouls at the end of the game, or at least would have pushed Brooklyn to shoot, or at least put a layup in. At one point, they ran right by a layup to waste time. It was just worst case timing at the end of the game. The pace was all the way there until the last 2 minutes. So I thought that over was rock solid. Didn't quite hit. I still think it was the right pick, to be honest. I still think most of the time Boston and Brooklyn play, it's going to be a closer game than that. But it did not bear out. And then we move on to Texas Tech, which was a big win for me. Texas +1.5. Really swept that one out 1-1. I think it just more so than anything about Texas, I think it proved everything I was saying about Texas Tech being just a bit fraudulent. I don't think Texas Tech is in that Final Four Elite 8 class. In fact, I think they're probably outside of the top 6 or 7 in Big 12. So I haven't been all that high on Texas Tech all year. I think they're a lot of hype. I think there's a big hype train due to their coach and due to Mac McClung and Terrence Shannon. And I just don't think that the rest of the team has lived up to that potential to be a Final Four Elite 8 type sleeper team. So Texas, again, didn't really impress me. It was more so Texas Tech didn't impress me. And then Portland +2.5 against Phoenix I had, but I didn't even really like that bet because it ended up going to 5. And I thought when I made the bet the night before, I thought Devin Booker wasn't playing. So that one, should have just waited on that one. Shouldn't have bet it the night before. But I knew I was on the wrong side as soon as I saw the line movement. Even though Portland did hang around all game, and Portland was winning for a lot of that game. As soon as it got to the fourth quarter, actually, Portland, unlike the rest of the year, couldn't outscore the other team in the fourth, which is what Dame Lillard's been good at all year, but he really disappointed me last night personally. So let's move on. We got through that rough Thursday, 2-5. We lost 11.5 units yesterday. It was a tough one, but on March, we're still 28-22, up 12 units. Best bet is 5-3. So, hey man, I'm not always going to be riding high at the Rocky Tops. So I gotta take my lumps where I can take them. Won't get too down. Gotta keep firing. This is March. You're gonna have up and down days. So that's gambling, folks. Moves me to 190, 162, and 1 on the year in basketball. So I believe that wraps up the first portion of our show. So without any further ado, to the thousands watching on the stream and the millions watching around the world on YouTube. Let's get ready to gamble. I hit my mic there, but let's get ready. Let's get it started. Let's get the weekend going. Let's get it started off right. It is Friday, 2 o'clock. As my first bet, I have Purdue plus 1.5 versus Ohio State for 2 units. Purdue coming off of a rest due to a bye and staying in their home state of Indiana for the Big Ten tournament. This is just a nightmare of a matchup for the Buckeyes. Big Ed Double-Vodka Don from Barstool will tell you that Ohio State is just an absolutely terrible matchup for Purdue. They lost twice already this year. Ohio State doesn't have the bigs at all to handle Travion Williams or Zach Edey or even Jaden Ivey on his dribble drive game. Ohio State just they have a way better 3-ball, but Purdue has such an advantage defensively and on the glass here that it's hard for me to look any other way but Purdue. Those advantages are why Purdue upset Ohio State both times they've played so far this year. So they're going for a 3-0 underdog sweep. They were underdogs both of those first 2 times. They're underdogs again today. Sasha Stefanovic is going to be such a huge X factor, as he always is for the Purdue Boilermakers. When he plays well or plays one of his better games, Purdue steps up and becomes a scarier offense, especially from deep and especially on entry passes. That is much more versatile and much more dangerous. Sasha Stefanovic is, I always say, their low-key most important player, even though he's probably their 3rd or 4th best player. I think he's just so important. I think Purdue relies today, I should say, on Williams, Edey, Ivey, and Sasha, the legit boss, Stefanovic. Shout out to my WWE fans. And I think that's enough to get them past Dwayne Washington, EJ Liddell, and Kyle Young, because I think Purdue is the better team who has their number, and I think they have an advantage in key matchups. I hate to be the guy who just says I'll go with the team who won the first 2 games of the season to win the 3rd game, and I know it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but I think Purdue will take care of business here, and I think they advance in the Big Ten tournament. So I like Purdue plus 1.5 to get to the Big Ten tournament semifinals. Let me take a sip of coffee out here, folks. So that brings us to our next bet right here. I've got Florida plus 3.5 versus Tennessee for 1 unit. The Gators split with the Vols this year, and I was on both games. Florida won the first game by 26, holding Tennessee to 49 points. That's the game I'm choosing to focus on more than the game from last week that Teflon John mentioned with redemption for my Sunday pick. I'll pull up Joe Chick's comment in a minute after I get done with my Florida breakdown here for Teflon John. I know he likes Florida today, and it is redemption on Sunday. I took Florida to beat Tennessee in their last regular season game. Tennessee got their win back at home by 11. If you watch the game, it felt like there was like a full stadium at Tennessee. It felt like they had it absolutely rocking, and it felt like a big home court advantage, which they will not have today in Nashville in the SEC tourney. Florida played terrible in that game, especially in the second half, and I think it's an outlier, especially due to Trey Mann, their best player, being announced right before the game, being back and better than ever. Absolutely killed Vandy dead yesterday and went nuts in the clutch. Florida shot 3 for 14 from 3 in last game, and I think that's an outlier. Florida's not that bad of a shooting team. They're a better shooting team than Tennessee. Florida's top 5 scorers shoot 76% or higher from the free throw line. So in a close game, you know you're getting good free throw production. You know they're not going to have to put in bums that hurt you on defense to get good free throw line value. And 34% or higher from 3 from the top 5 scorers on Florida. So everyone on Florida can pretty much just shoot the rock. Tennessee wins with defense, but I'm just hoping Florida is just too much shooting, too much offense. So I will take Florida plus 3.5 versus Tennessee for 1 unit. I literally just got a line notification that this line moves to 4 points. So I really hope Trey Mann's playing. I know he played yesterday. There shouldn't be any reason he doesn't play. I really hope that there's no injury reasons causing that line movement. So let's move on to a quick bet here at 6:30. Oh, wait, let's do Joe Chick's comment first. Let's bring that up. Toledo got my hopes up yesterday, bringing it to OT, but a foul with 1 second left killed me. But we're back 3 early games. Teaser again. Michigan 3.5. Wisconsin. Wichita. Thank God you're not doing Wisconsin, Joe Chick. If it was Wisconsin, I might have kicked you out of the stream. Wichita -4.5. Bama -3.5. Let me pull up the early game slate. I hope Wichita wins. Everyone, as I've said yesterday on the podcast, I have Wichita State plus 1,400 to win the AAC, so I'll be watching that game at noon. I don't have any other bets at noon, so I'll actually just be watching Wichita State rooting for a win. As they say, Joe Chick, you don't want to go to war with the Shockers. Don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. So I like Wichita State a lot to win that game. So -4.5. I know the line's up at 9, so yeah, USF has not been very good this year. I mean, Wichita has been the best team in the AAC outside of Houston. And the funny thing is, Wichita is not a good free throw shooting team, so that's always something that made me nervous about Wichita and placing the future on them because they shoot 69% from the free throw line. But you look at USF, they're shooting 62% from the free throw line. They're shooting worse from three, worse on the glass, less assists, more turnovers, less takeaways. They're fouling more often. So every discernible category, Wichita has a complete advantage in. So I would say Wichita is a safe bet there to win that game. And then Michigan, like I said earlier, I like Michigan to take care of Maryland. So I like Michigan to win that game. Now this is a weird one. So Bama -3.5. Everything I subscribe to would say Bama's just too much offense for Mississippi State. Mississippi State's a defensive team. Bama's an offensive team. I think styles make fights. I think lately we're seeing more than anything these teams who push the pace are able to get back in games even if they get down early. So normally I'd be right on board with Bama, especially in a teaser against Mississippi State. Mississippi State looked really good to me yesterday against Kentucky. I know it's Kentucky, so I'm probably overreacting. And Joe Chick, the guy who just left that comment, is a Kentucky fan. So I wonder what his mental gymnastics are here about this game. But I think Mississippi State impressed me yesterday. They have some guys. They have some dudes, Iverson and Iverson Molinar. So they have some dudes certainly who can really make some plays happen, and they did so yesterday against Kentucky in a game that Kentucky made it a game at the end after Mississippi State was leading all game. But they ended up holding on, and you could say it's a grueling game. It was a long game. They didn't get any rest. All their starters played big minutes. You could say that could definitely negatively affect Mississippi State going in today, and I would usually agree with that. To me, it just felt like such a momentum win, not because Kentucky's good, but because Mississippi State is not this huge program, and Kentucky's obviously Kentucky. I just feel like sometimes when a program gets a win like that, especially in conference tournament play, they kind of get this air of confidence, and it's like a snowball rolling downhill. So I'm just a little bit nervous that Mississippi State could be going on a run here to try to make the tournament. I don't think they will, but I think that I could see them trying to go on that run to make the tournament. So let's go to my next play here. I've got Oklahoma State team total over 70 for 1.5 units. 7 straight games, Oklahoma State has scored 70 plus. 11 of 13 games, Oklahoma State has scored 70 or plus. 17 of the last 20 games, Oklahoma State has scored 70 plus. That's all I really got on that. Oh well, they did it. They scored 70 plus both times they played Baylor. So I'm hoping that Oklahoma State stays with the trends there. I'm actually not that convicted in the pick. I'm just riding the trend there. Just 70 points is just very low for Oklahoma State with Cade Cunningham and Likely and the guys they got going. So I think that they'll probably score somewhere in the range of 75 to 80 points. So team total over 70, Oklahoma State. Let's ride it. 1.5 units. Another 1.5 unit play here is Oklahoma State plus 9.5. So I basically have 3 units on Oklahoma State here. I kind of like the team total. I kind of like plus 9.5. So I ended up just deciding to split it down the middle, put 3 units on the game overall. Oklahoma State plus 9.5 versus Baylor. Before their COVID shutdown, Baylor looked unstoppable. They looked unbelievable, the best team in the country, many were saying. But after the shutdown, they do look a little bit lackluster. Last night, they barely beat a terrible Kansas State team in the quarterfinals and were never able to pull away. Kansas State lost to Fort Hays. K-State lost to Fort Hays. So keeping in the game with Baylor made me pretty confident that Oklahoma State should be able to keep it in the game with Baylor. Cunningham and Oklahoma State were playing great before Cade got injured against Baylor. He scored 24 points in limited minutes. The problem was the rest of the guys on the team didn't have their best game, as he had more than 31% of the team's points. The Baylor Bears allowed better than 37% from three-point range and allowed K-State to shoot 40% from deep on Thursday. Oklahoma State combined for 11 of 30 from three-point range in both meetings with Baylor this season. So they're going to have to shoot better from three to win this game. And I think that they have it in them to do it. They did it yesterday. So I think Oklahoma State is going to have to shoot it from three better. And they're going to have to defend the three, but they do that, and they did it yesterday, and it's part of why they won the game. Baylor is the best three-point shooting team in the Big 12, making more than 42% of its three-point attempts. Baylor also shoots threes on almost 40% of its attempts. So as long as it's hitting a high percentage, it's going to shoot most teams out of the gym. I get that. The good news, like I said, Oklahoma State has the best three-point defense in the conference in the top 10 three-point defense in the Power 5, allowing 32% from deep, which I said yesterday, and it came through, which is always good when you throw out one of those stats, and it really drives a team to a win or a cover, which is what happened yesterday with Oklahoma State defending the three-point line against West Virginia and covering a 3.5-point spread. So let's get to 8 o'clock, my one play in the NBA. Looking at the NBA today, went 0-2 last night in the NBA, but we're trying to get back on track. Memphis Grizzlies plus 3.5 versus the Denver Nuggets for 1.5 units. Shout out to my guy, Ja Morant. We're going to ride with Ja because he's been good to us as of late. While Denver's offense is great due to Jokic and Jamal, its defense suffers due to both as they rank 14th in defensive rating with a record of 19-14 against the spread. The Grizzlies are actually low-key a top 5 against the spread team. And this is a crazy stat. Since 2010, the Grizzlies are the most profitable team in sports on the money line. Who would have thought that? You would have to give me 50 guesses in all the 4 major professional sports until I got the Grizzlies. I don't even know if I would have got the Grizzlies. I don't even know who I would have guessed, but it certainly would not have been the Grizzlies. A big reason I've loved them is because the Grizzlies forced the most steals in the NBA by a wide margin, over a full steal ahead of the Pacers, who are in second place. The Grizzlies currently shoot the most 2-point attempts per 100 possession and the 4th fewest three-pointers, which I generally don't like, but in certain matchups, it behooves them, and in this matchup, it is the perfect matchup to attack the rim because the Nuggets a brief connection issue there, but I think we're fine now. So like I said, the Grizzlies shoot a lot of twos, not a lot of threes. The Nuggets, terrible defense at the rim. The Grizzlies can attack the rim with Jonas Valanciunas and Triple J. I think the Grizzlies have the bigs to match Jokic, and I think the Grizz are poised to go on a run in the second half, as my guy on No Dunks, J.E. Skeets, says. I think the Grizz are the perfect team to get hot in the second half. They're playing good basketball. Everyone's healthy. Young teams tend to go on a run in the second half. So I think they got continuity going. I think Grizzlies are playing great basketball, and I think they'll continue to. Denver has been disappointing to me against the spread, especially as a road favorite. So I'll ride with the grit and the grind. Grizz it up, Memphis plus 3.5 over the Denver Nuggets for 1.5 units. Getting to my play of the day, my best bet, my lock of the night. At 9 o'clock, I like UConn in a pick'em against Creighton for 2 units. I know Creighton just come off the 2 huge blowouts against Butler. And without their coach, everyone was expecting it to go one or the other way. Everyone was expecting, Butler to completely hang in the game and Creighton to show up flat because their coach wasn't there. But it really was the opposite. They came out fired up. But I think that could be an emotional high, and I think it could wear off, especially against a team like UConn, who's always playing on an emotional high with Coach Hurley yelling at them at full strength. Creighton has beaten UConn twice, but both games have been remarkably close. One was without Bouknight, so to me it shouldn't even count. And UConn still kept it in the number and covered. One was one of the first 5 games of the year. So those games don't really mean all that much to me, even though UConn did hang in both. This is classic overvalued versus undervalued to me, with UConn's against the spread record being 16-5 as opposed to Creighton being 12-14 against the spread. Don't just read the records on the sheet, say, oh, Creighton's a way better team. They're ranked. I just don't see it like that. I think UConn's the better team here, personally. UConn has covered 5 straight, and UConn has won and covered 5 straight, and 7 of 9, 5 straight wins, won 7 of 8. UConn's playing their best basketball of the year, and I think Bouknight should be a top 10 pick. And this is where you prove it, James. This is where you prove that you're a top 10 pick, and I think he's got the potential to take UConn on a run here to prove it. and to go into the March Madness and to prove it even more. So moving on, UConn has a huge advantage in rebounding, especially on the offensive glass. But the biggest reason I love UConn and the biggest reason they're my play of the day, my lock of the night, my best bet is because UConn plays close games. What does that mean? Especially as of late, they play close games, and what's important in a close game? Free throws. Shooting from the free throw line, the charity stripe, is become so much more important in close games. I don't know. I don't have to tell any of you college basketball gamblers how important free throws are down the stretch. Creighton shoots over 7% worse on a full attempt less. I think the difference will be UConn's free throw shooting in the clutch. They get there more often. They shoot it more efficiently. If it's a close game, I like UConn to advance in the Big East tourney. In my opinion, the winner of this game wins the Big East, and I'm hoping that's the UConn Huskies. Paul LaCroix, let's get it. Great day for basketball. Fantastic day for basketball. It's the top 5 basketball day of the year, honestly. So it's going to be fantastic. There's a huge slate of games I haven't even talked about, but I did try to take some of the bigger games today. I got one more before I wrap it up and talk about a few of the games that I didn't talk about yet. Thanks for being here, Paul, by the way. So 9:30, I have LSU money line versus Ole Miss. It's a pick 'em right now for 2 units. LSU has been so good to me all year. I had to go back to the well. This is a styles make fights matchup. LSU's defense is piss poor, as admitted by Coach Will Wade on the Barstool Bench Mob podcast. Shout out Rico Bosco. Shout out Marty Mush. Shout out Jake Marsh, the future. So when your coach is doing podcast interviews and admitting that your defense is terrible, that's not a great sign. So Ole Miss, on the other hand, wants to win games in the 50s. So they have the absolute opposite problem. Their offense is just not good enough. Devontae Shuler does not give them quite enough. No one else is helping them out quite enough on offense. LSU wants to speed games up and run, and Ole Miss wants to break out walkers and wheelchairs to get around. They want a slow game that James Naismith would be proud of. LSU beat the hell out of Ole Miss in January on the road in Oxford. LSU shot 7 for 21 from 3, which is not an outlier at all. I'd actually expect better. They shoot better on a percentage basis from the line. I just think that this is a terrible matchup for the Rebels. I think LSU just has too much offense. LSU is 5% more efficient from the free throw line and the three-point line, but averaging more rebounds and assists and less turnovers. When looking at the numbers, I talked myself way harder into LSU. This is going to be a 1-unit play. It's up to a 2-unit play. So let's go LSU. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. Let's go LSU. While taking notes, like I said, I talked myself really hard into that game. That almost became my best bet. So it's looking like my 2 most important bets are going to be my last 2 bets with UConn and LSU to finish the night. So let's pull up some of the games that I maybe did not get a chance to go over in the NCAA in the top 25. I'm not going to go through the NBA today. This is a college basketball day. I know I did take one NBA game, but I'm not going to go through the games I don't have an opinion on. Go Sixers. I already talked about that at the beginning of the pod. I want the Sixers to win against the Wizards. If it was like a -2, -3, I might be on them, but -5, just a bit too much for me. So let's take a look at the top 25 in college basketball and who's playing today. We talked about Maryland, Michigan. We talked about Mississippi State, Bama, Georgia Tech, UVA, Georgia Tech, Virginia. Virginia is a 4-point favorite. I think Virginia should take care of business here. Moses Wright obviously makes you a little trepidatious because he's been so good for Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech's probably in the tournament. We're back. we were gone for a minute, but we back now. Let's get back into the slate. I don't know what the hell happened there. I need to figure out some Wi-Fi stuff. Georgia Tech at Virginia. I think Virginia takes care of business here. I think they move on. If I were to do a money line parlay, Virginia and the Sixers and Wichita State would probably be what it would be. It would probably be a noon Wichita State, 6:30 Virginia, 8 o'clock Sixers, all money line. It's probably around plus 150. Completely pulled that out of my head based on just looking at the games, but that would probably be my money line parlay if I were forced to take one today. Rutgers at Illinois. Illinois is a 7.5 point favorite. I think Rutgers plus 7.5 actually could be a value here. I'm not taking it because Illinois has been so good even without Io DeSuma, but I think Rutgers plus 7.5 could be a decent value. Missouri at Arkansas. Arkansas is a 4.5 point favorite. I have Arkansas to win the SEC tourney. I also have Arkansas to make the Final Four. So I like Arkansas to advance here. I've been against Mizzou all year, so I think Arkansas is a safe bet to win here. I'm not taking 4.5 points, though. Same with Iowa. I feel the exact same way. I don't like Wisconsin. I like Iowa. Iowa minus 4.5, just a bit too many, but I do think Iowa wins the game. UNC Florida State. Florida State's a 2.5 point favorite. I couldn't imagine a game I want to bet less unless there was besides the next game I'm about to talk about. The two late games on ESPN tonight are just, I think they could go either way. They're going to be great games, 50-50. I have no idea which way to pick. UNC Florida State, I think either team could win. I think it should actually be a pick 'em. So I guess that means if I had to make a pick, it'd be UNC. But I think both teams are very good. I have no idea which way I'd go on that. And same with the last two games here. 9:30 Texas Kansas, literally a pick 'em. I have no idea. I was on Texas last night. It wouldn't have made me any more confident today on Texas. So I'm laying away from that game. And then Colorado USC. Colorado is a 1.5 point favorite. I think USC is the better team, but USC just got their doors blown off by Colorado last week, and I was on USC. I can't do it again. I can't go back to the well, so I'm staying away. But I do have leans today. Even the games I don't like, I have leans on. So I'm hoping I have a better day today. Let's go down my card. Purdue plus 1.5 versus Ohio State for 2 units. Florida plus 3.5 versus Tennessee for 1.5 units. Oklahoma State plus 9.5 versus Baylor for 1.5 units. Oklahoma State team total over 70 against Baylor for 1.5 units. The Memphis Grizzlies plus 3.5 versus the Denver Nuggets for 1.5 units. UConn in a pick'em versus Creighton for 2 units. LSU money line versus Ole Miss for 1.5 units. Everyone, thanks for joining. I'll announce on Twitter what time we'll be doing tomorrow. I imagine we're going to be going live in the morning again, probably a little later, maybe a bit like 10 o'clock. So for everyone who joined in, everyone who left picks in the comments, thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. Please go follow The Painted Lines at The Painted Lines on Twitter. Please subscribe on Twitch and YouTube to The Painted Lines. Please follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter. Please follow the Tough Cover Pod at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for joining and enjoy the winners.